Welcome to Norway. 87% of the cars sold here in 2021 were electrified, either hybrid or full EV. A lot of that is due to incentives on EVs and huge tax penalties if you buy a new car that has an internal combustion engine. Norway has invested a ton of money into the EV infrastructure here, both in terms of installing charging stations and also providing subsidies if you buy an electric vehicle. They pay for that with profits from the sale of oil. Sure, this country is full of ironic funding, but it is the perfect place and the natural place for Lotus to announce or unveil their big new step, which is the 5-door electric-only SUV, the Eletre. I know. Put that down. I can already hear you in the comments. In fact, I went into the future and screen grabbed your comments, and I have some of them here. Lotus is about lightness, and this isn't light. How dare Lotus make an SUV? Are the brakes any good? You misspelled brake. Colin is rolling in his grave. Carlton dancing gif. Why can't they just keep making sports cars? And lastly, first, I hear you. I'm going to answer all those questions and address all of those concerns in this video. First, we're going to walk around and talk about the design. Then we're going to take it for a drive and see if it still has that Lotus magic we all love so much.
The Eletre is unlike any Lotus before. 5 seats, air suspension, all-wheel drive, electric steering, and, well, everything else. All of these are first for the legendary British sports car brand. Both the base and S trims get a pair of 225 kilowatt motors, producing a total of 591 horsepower. Upgrade to the Eletre R, which I'll drive later in this video, and power climbs to 900. This S trim has a 105 kilowatt hour battery, giving it 370 miles of range. That's significantly further than the Hummer EV, despite the Lotus having a battery pack nearly half the size of GM's BattleBot. A few things determine an electric car's range. One is battery size, another is drag. The Hummer's drag coefficient is 0.5 G, so it needs a really big battery pack just to make it down the block. The Lotus, however, is slippery. This is a big car. It's within 1 inch in size of a Lamborghini Urus. But where the Lambo's drag coefficient is 0.34, the Eletre's is just 0.26.
Part of the 0.26 coefficient of drag is thanks to these mirrors, which are actually cameras with screens on the inside of each of the doors. Not legal in the US yet, of course. They only reduced the drag by 1.5%, but every bit counts. One thing that does add drag are retractable LiDAR sensors. Yeah, this has them here, and then there's another one at the top of the windshield. Lotus wanted to future-proof this car so that it could eventually have level 4 autonomy. I asked when that would be, and they didn't really have an answer because the legality of level 4 autonomy is still a bit of a question mark. I can't imagine why they went with LiDAR though. Why wouldn't you just use cameras like Tesla? Seems to be working perfectly.
This functionally slippery drag is partly due to what Lotus calls porous design. Look around the car and you will find holes for the air to pass through rather than going around or over the car. These also reduce turbulence and lift. This car is literally full of technology that Lotus has never put in a car before. Ambitious? Yeah. Let's see how it comes together. The first question, what happens when you hit the accelerator?
Well, it has 600 horsepower and all-wheel drive, so should be quick. Sport mode. They say 0 to 60 takes 4.5 seconds, and of course if you get the Electra R, that time will go down. But I have to say, this doesn't really have a launch mode. It's pretty gentle off the line. Kind of surprising for an electric car with 600 horsepower. Acceleration from a roll in sport mode is very brisk. As you'd expect, it's an electric car. There should be no lag unless it is programmed in there. Making an EV accelerate quickly is not hard. It's like adding bacon to any dish. It does not make you a chef. In my opinion, where you earn your Michelin star is how it drives, whether or not it's fun, and Lotus engineers have created some of the funnest cars ever made, both cars that wore the Lotus badge and work they did for other OEMs. They just know how to set a vehicle up. They ride well, they're still agile, they're fun, they talk to you, all that stuff. But it is a little easier to do that when your cars weigh 1,500 to 3,000 pounds. But this car weighs 5,700 pounds. You have 4 driving modes. We have range, tour, off-road, and sport. In off-road mode, you can use the air suspension to raise the car 2 inches, and in sport mode, it will drop down 1 inch. So first thing, steering feel. Not a lot of it, to be honest. Going into a corner, I don't feel much pressure through it at all. It has The weight's okay. It's not too heavy. It doesn't feel too fake. And the speed of the steering is fine. You're not going to do a lot of hand over hand, but not much feedback coming through those front wheels. The air suspension is very good. This car comes standard with air suspension and adaptive dampers. You can option it to have a 48-volt active anti-roll as well as rear steer. But I have to say, the ride has been very comfortable in touring mode, and now we're in sport mode, and it has flattened things out a little bit. It's stiffened up, but it's an invisible air suspension system, which is what you want. Some cars I've driven, when you're in a corner, you can feel it adding pressure to a corner in the middle of that turn. This is not doing that. It feels set the entire time. The competition in this space, cars like the Rivian R1S, maybe an R1T if you want a bed, the BMW iX. I have not driven that BMW, but the Rivian handled incredibly well. It was a really nimble car, especially for something that weighs 7,000 pounds. Weighs a lot more than this does, and it felt so fast. It was like a lifted GTR. This, by all measure, feels as good, I would say. I mean, we are carrying plenty of speed on this road. I'm not going super fast because I don't know the road. This is a 2-lane area, and the speed limits are low in this country, and apparently the fines are quite high, so we're not going to get too crazy. I'm still getting used to using side screens instead of side view mirrors. I keep looking at the wrong spot. Now, if I lift off the throttle, this will not come to a stop with one pedal, even if I turn regen all the way up to level 3. We asked the engineers about this. We thought maybe the system can't do it. No, they just didn't program it in. They think their customer doesn't want it. They're just trying to make it what they called approachable, where it doesn't feel jerky to someone who's new to EVs. I don't understand why they couldn't just make it an option. The engineer said they could always update it over the air later if people want it, but I don't get why you're going to give people 3 different levels of regen and not just give them a 4th where it will come to a stop with one pedal.
The regular Eletre is very quick, unless you pull up next to one of the many EVs making 4-figure horsepower. To keep up with them, you're going to need the Eletre R, which we were allowed to drive on a runway.
Okay, Eletre R. The first thing we're doing is sort of a slalom cone-built road course, and then we're going to go test the acceleration, including the launch mode, which this spec does have. All the cones are the same color.
So I'll guide you through.
That's good, because some of them...
yeah, some are a bit confusing.
Yeah.
So forward to the first one, over to the right, back to the left, back to the right, left again.
It's very balanced. It really is.
Right, yeah. Onto the brakes, stay nice and wide, aiming for your second one. At this one, sharp turn in, aiming for the one on the right. Keep the lock on the exit.
Ooh, I got on a little early.
Gate. Left of the next 2, forward to your next one. Might need a little brake here, back to the right.
Little scrub.
Then final one on the left.
I won't say it feels lighter than it weighs, but it feels good for a 6,000-ish pound EV SUV. It feels like what you want it to feel. And the active anti-roll system is good. It keeps it flat without keeping it abnormally flat where you can't feel anything. If you can't feel any of the lean of the car, I don't like that, because then you can't tell when it's going to break away or when you're going to lose grip. But this had just the right amount of lean.
Did some filming the other day, and I feel like the driver aids don't kick in too much, especially on that slalom. It kind of lets you balance.
Because we didn't have traction off, right?
No.
We were in normal sport, and
yeah.
I had a little bit of, I overcooked it a little bit in the front because it's my first time here, but it wasn't intervening right away.
Yeah.
Okay. Launch control time. As I said in the other video, the regular version does not have a launch control. We confirmed it with the engineers, but the R does. So we're going to try it in sport, and then we're going to try it in track mode, which is even more aggressive.
Yeah.
And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh. Digs hard as expected for an EV. We get up to 160, and then we're slowing back down using the big 6-pot calipers in the front. Okay.
Then into track.
See if there's a difference. And brake, gas, we got a little smoke on from the brake pedal. Oh, that does get up harder. That goes a little bit harder. Ooh, okay.
3, 2, 1.
We're not supposed to go faster than 160 kilometers an hour, which is fine. I did notice as we were accelerating there, it weaved slightly. I don't know if that's a power delivery thing or a traction management thing, but it was just kind of moving a little bit left and right. And we were only going 80 to 100 miles per hour at that point. The The sport mode, when you launch, there's like 0.2 of a second of hesitation, and then it kicks pretty hard. And the track mode is just full bang, like right from the jump.
Not every owner will drive on a runway, but almost all of them will use the car's screens and buttons.
If you're going to sell an SUV for $100,000, it should be nice, which this one is, luckily. Your competition at this price point is, a fully optioned Rivian R1S. It's getting close to 100 grand. BMW iX, of course, very nice interior, very futuristic, let's say. Or a Tesla Model X, which has the interior of a cleaned out desk when someone gets fired. So this definitely wins that competition. Lotus is very proud of the computing power and speed of this screen, and they should be. It uses the same system that the S-Class uses, as well as the Unreal engine that a lot of cars are using, like the Hummer. Basically, the graphics look really good and everything reacts really, really quickly. They also said that they have kind of overbuilt this so that when they update it and make it more complicated later, the GPU and everything won't get overwhelmed and just crash. This does not use the same system that the Polestar and Volvo do, which is good because those are a little slow. They're Android backed. They just don't work that quickly, and they're very clunky with CarPlay. I have found it fairly intuitive to use, very fast to react to touch. Navigation's been really good, changing menus, bringing up settings. It all happens as quick as you expect if you use a smartphone at all. There's a few things I don't like. One is changing the volume. You can do it here with this thumb control on the wheel, or you can do it with the screen, but there's no slider that is permanently available to you. You either have to tap the lower right, which brings your media screen up and it might be there, or you tap this upper right control, which brings up the volume for everything. I do like that. They put that song on the playlist, I swear. I find myself adjusting stereo volume frequently, and I just think this is a little cumbersome. And as we've said a lot on this channel, pulling your eyes off the road to operate a touchscreen is not the safest thing in the world. Yes, you can do it with the thumb control, but you have to tap it, up, down, up, down, up, down, instead of just going slide over, slide up, slide down. If you want to adjust your temperature, you can use these awesome kind of gold-plated looking controls. So I love having temperature adjustment at my fingertips without having to pull up a menu. That's great. You can also change it in the climate menu, of course. Heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel, good for Norway in the wintertime. Heated mirrors, blah, blah, blah. And then you adjust the vents using the screen. So there's no sliders on here. This is like a Tesla thing where you adjust the fan direction using your finger on the tablet. I like what they've done with the instrument cluster. It's a very thin screen. It just tells me my miles per hour, the speed limit, where I'm at, battery percentage, and what driving mode I'm in. And of course, some other things like the regen setting, but it's kind of minimal information, but everything I want to see. And then the heads-up display shows that information as well and can present turn by turn when I want it. That's great. What I do think is silly is the screen in front of the passenger. They can use it to change the music track if they want to, but honestly, it's so far away from where you're sitting, it's easier to reach over and just hit the center screen. A lot of car companies have been adding these passenger screens. I think it is a shiny thing that you attach to a fishing lure, but ultimately it's not that useful. But it sure looks fancy. It sure looks fancy, doesn't it? Seats are good. Very adjustable, very comfortable. On long drives, no problems there. This thing is laid out smart. This wireless charger is one of the best I've used. We put our phones on it earlier today and it never disconnected. Sometimes you get those surprises where the phone has been on the charger but not actually charging. That was not a problem. This is a huge cavernous cubby thing you can use, and there's also a glove box. And then the side storage is great. You could fit a large water bottle, a bunch of other things. It's a very livable space, as it should be. It's an SUV. The center screen is really fast, as I said, but it does have a few little issues I don't like. One, if I pull up a menu, let's say I pull up this navigation volume menu, and I want to tap out of it, I have to tap the map. But every time I've done that, it has added a waypoint to our trip, and it says, do you want to go here now? No, I do not want to go there now. The good news is that they're going to be doing updates on this. This is equipped with 5G, and between that and this car being made in Wuhan, I don't think Alex Jones will be buying one. Most of the materials are very nice to look at and to touch. There's one big exception though. The dashboard is very reflective. It catches a lot of sun, and then you see that reflection on the windshield. So right now I can not only see the nook where the heads-up display lives, but I can see it again. It's like I'm seeing everything twice. I do love these cool cup holders. They have a cover of sorts. So you push this down, now you have a cup holder. When you don't want to see it again, you hit this button, it covers them up. Why do they exist? I don't know. What problem do they solve? Nothing. Do I like them? Yes. There's a lot to like about this car. For a first effort and such a new endeavor, it feels like a premium product. It's put together very well. This stereo in this, if you get the 23 speaker Atmos Dolby system, it is like sitting in a private movie theater. It's the best stereo I have ever experienced in my entire life. It is absolutely incredible. Clarity, power, everything. They played rain sounds, they played techno, they played classic, rock, and Marvin Gaye. All of it sounded absolutely amazing. And the fact that nothing shook loose on this, I think, is pretty impressive because it's a very complicated car.
I've addressed most of your questions, but 2 remain. The first, is it a Lotus? Frankly, no. Not in the traditional sense, but it couldn't be. A 3-ton electric SUV will never feel like an Elise or an Elan or an Evora. To expect otherwise is a fool's errand. This problem of identity is one that all sports car makers are going to face as EVs become more common. A car's engine can be a defining part of its character. Without that element, brands are going to have to work really hard to make their cars stand out from the competition. The last question is, why do they have to sell this? Because they literally have to. Geely, who now owns Polestar and Volvo, along with a number of other car brands, gave Lotus $200 million, a lot of which went to the Emira factory. Naturally, they want a return on that investment. And in 2022, Lotus only sold about 1,700 cars. If they want to be relevant instead of remembered, they have to adapt to the market's demands. It's the same thing Porsche went through with the Cayenne. Lotus said their goal is to sell 100,000 cars by 2027, and sports cars will only be 10% of those sales. The rest will be what Lotus calls lifestyle cars, like the Eletre and upcoming projects. This brand transformation from niche sports car maker to luxury EV will not be easy. The sports cars will continue to be designed, engineered, and built in Britain, with the lifestyle cars being engineered in Germany and assembled in China. What we're seeing is a brand transformation, and that kind of change will not be easy. I hope Lotus delivers because I love what they've done for cars. I don't want to cause their death by requiring them to only make sports cars. Everyone is making crossovers, so why not them? If the Eletre funds the next generation of Lotus sports cars, I'm happy it's here. And considering that this is their first step into the luxury EV space, I left Norway quite impressed.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.